All right. In the interest of everyone's time, I'm going to go ahead and get going. So, welcome to Navigating Your Food Business, a Success Series. Thank you for joining us for our webinar presentation today, where we're going to be joined by the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina to think about some business considerations and services that they offer to entrepreneurs and small businesses. So if you have joined us before, you've probably seen this screen already. But this is our success series, the webinars. We do have three more webinars coming up over the next 3 weeks. Next week, I'll be doing a webinar on food labeling, some do's and don'ts of food labeling from the farm all the way to value-added processed foods. Then we'll be joined by Ellen Shoemaker and the Safe Plates program to talk about retail food operations like food trucks, restaurants, and other operations. And then finally, we'll hear from Lynette and Clint Stevenson on third-party audit certifications for those who are looking to expand their business model and move into some of those stores such as Walmart or Whole Foods or Food Lion. A quick reminder, all of these webinars are hosted on Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. And I believe that many of these moving forward, our screen right here says that it's going to be a recorded session, but we are lucky to have some participants come back in the evening. And we'll actually be hosting live sessions. So if you'd like to register for any of these upcoming events, feel free to take out your phone and scan this QR code that you see here on the screen. While you may be doing that, I just wanted to real quickly acknowledge our grant funding. We are a grant funded project with this success series through USDA and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So our disclosure statement to that funding is down at the bottom of your screen. Then we do have our in-person success series. We've already hosted one of these events here in Cary, North Carolina, in the Wake County area. We have developed a food safety implementation guide. And while this event is hosted in partnership with many of our small business centers across the state, this truly is a food safety focused event where this implementation guide gets to the meat and potatoes of what you have to do to successfully implement food safety systems in your operation. And not just information and resources and networking that'll be provided, but this tool also provides templates, logs, policies, and procedures that you can customize and implement in your own operation. You can see these core areas of focus that we're going to cover. So if any of these are on your radar for your operation that you might want to improve or implement, please, we welcome you to join us. We'll be in Wilmington, North Carolina on June 11th. And we are working currently this week with Western North Carolina in the Triad region in Greensboro to host events in July. All right, so before we get going and I hand the screen over, a few logistics. When you come in, please, if you'll keep your speaker on mute while Laurel is presenting. If you have any immediate questions, please feel free to put them into the Q&A chat. Lynette and I will be on that backside, fielding any of those questions and raising our hand for Laurel to answer them when she comes to an appropriate point of her presentation. And I have heard that there are going to be opportunities for you to unmute your microphone, turn on your camera if you want to, no pressure, and ask questions directly of Laurel throughout the presentation. And finally, a lot of information and resources will be presented today. So don't worry about screenshotting or grabbing everything. I'll be collecting those and sending them out in an email to all of our participants at the end. All right, so here we are, finally, the reason why you're here. I'm so grateful to present and thank Laurel Roop for joining us today. She is the director of the Small Business Advisor team at the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, a establishment that truly serves entrepreneurs and small businesses across the state. So, Laurel, thank you again so much for joining us. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can go ahead and share yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see here. We'll get this up and there we go. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here and to talk to all of you who are on the call. So I'm Laurel Roop. I'm the director of the small business team, and I've got a screen here, and you'll meet the rest of the team as well. But we are part of the Economic Development Partnership in North Carolina, EDPNC, and we're economic development for the state of North Carolina. We work in partnership with the Department of Commerce, and we're a public-private nonprofit. Now, we all used to be part of Commerce. Well, I started, I guess, a year after they broke out and built EDPNC. But 11 and a half years ago, the state legislature created the public-private nonprofit. And so everything from business development, business recruitment, the travel and tourism department, the film office, international trade, exporting, existing business, and then my small team, the small business team. So we are economic development for the state. And I'm going to jump ahead here. Today, I'm going to talk you through sort of our standard presentation for how do you start a new business. But I've added some food business specifics so that you can make sure you understand the regulatory things that you need to do. And that's what my team does, is we help people with the regulatory requirements for starting a business. So this is my team. I always say three and a half of us. I'm a working manager, so I get to talk to folks on the phone some every day too. And two of my advisors are bilingual in Spanish, so we have support in Spanish. We teach classes also in Spanish. This class would be taught in Spanish with like the small business centers or the one of the public libraries. And we've been teaching for, I think, 2 or 3 years now, in addition to the work we do with people, helping them on the phone. And let's see here. My team started back in 1987, so many, many, many years ago. And the team sat at the Department of the Secretary of State and was formed to help people with business licensing, and was called Business License Information Office. At that point in time, there were many more licensing requirements in the state, like a general business license, things like that, and it was a little more complicated. Um, Years later, it moved over to the North Carolina Department of Commerce and became Business Link North Carolina, or Blink. And then 11 years ago, when the EDPNC was formed, our team came along with the rest of economic development. And about 2 years ago, we had sort of a marketing name change, an update, and we're now known as the Small Business Advisors. So we've been known by different names, but we still do the work that we have always done, helping people, entrepreneurs who are starting a new business. We we're able to do a whole lot more than we used to do in things like this kind of a class, as well as being sort of out and about in the community some. And we're able to help with I think more things than we did originally when we were only business licenses. So North Carolina, I'm sure you've seen in the news, is the top state for business, 3 out of the last 4 years. And our team, my small business team, we may not support directly the businesses that you and I hear about in the news, but one of the reasons those businesses come to North Carolina is because of our small businesses. I mean, businesses relocating here or establishing a headquarters here, they want to know that they'll be able to hire employees, but also that, there's good places to go to eat dinner or to get your hair cut or go shopping. And so small business is really an important part of being that top state for business. And this always sort of astonishes me. The Small Business Administration, the United States SBA, um, tracks small businesses in every state. In North Carolina, you can see here, over 99% of businesses in North Carolina are considered small businesses. And our small businesses employ a little over 44% of North Carolina employees. Now, the vast majority of small businesses, at least the ones that we talked to initially, probably don't have many employees. Some of them are just one person businesses. Um, but I mean, it's very obvious that small businesses are really important to the state of North Carolina. Okay, so let's step in. Now we're going to jump into things and talk about what are the steps I need to follow as a business owner. But wait, before we do that, have you thought about things like a business plan? Um, are you going to have an LLC? Do you need an operating agreement? How are you going to cover expenses? Do you have a financial plan? Um, have I thought of a business name? That's kind of important. Am I going to need funding? What about market research? That's important too. Is there a need for my type of business? Do I need to hire employees? How do I do all this stuff? And it can be totally overwhelming. Fortunately, there's amazing help for you. The majority of it is free. So places like the Extension Service, obviously, which is the reason we're all here today, but also the Small Business Center Network. Every one of our community colleges in the state has a small business center. They offer free counseling and free online workshops on every business topic imaginable. So they can, if you need help with a business plan or an operating agreement or a class for intro to QuickBooks or how do I do social media marketing, Small Business Center has it all for free. So take advantage of the free stuff. If you happen to be a veteran or a military family, the Veteran Business Outreach Center is another awesome resource. Our office, of course, we can help you with the regulatory things. And then the Secretary of State's office has this amazing page, Rural Rise. It started out as resources for rural counties, but now all 100 counties are there. And each county has a page that has dozens and dozens of resources that can be useful to you as a business owner. Okay, so now we're going to jump back in and get into sort of the steps. Before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about vocabulary. Um, and let's see, we're going to jump one more. Okay. People call things by different names. An example of that is the assumed business name. And an assumed business name is a way to register a business as a sole proprietorship. People might call it a DBA or doing business as a sole proprietorship, a general partnership. It's all the same thing. People mention a state tax ID. And often the state tax ID is going to be your sales and use tax account with North Carolina Department of Revenue. But folks call it a wholesale number and a seller's permit and a resale certificate, all different kinds of things, but it's all your sales and use tax account with the North Carolina Department of Revenue. So people call things by different names. Sometimes you have to dig a little bit and make sure that you understand what somebody is referring to. don't ever hesitate to ask folks questions when you're talking about this kind of stuff. Um, and then a business license. We often get calls from folks who want to know, how do I get my business license? And in North Carolina, you don't, because our state legislature repealed it. It'll be 11 years ago come July. So there's no one size fits all generic license in North Carolina like there is in many states. All of our licensing and permitting are related to occupations and the location of the business. And we'll talk more about that. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is registering your business. And you register your business name at the same time that you're registering the business itself. Um, you business names in North Carolina, when you register as an LLC, limited liability company, or a corporation, those business names are protected in North Carolina. That means that no one else can register an LLC or a corporation using that name. And it also protects that name as a DBA or an assumed business name. Now, occasionally somebody will register an assumed business name without checking to make sure that that name was available. So you as an LLC owner, if that was the case, would then send a cease and desist letter to them to say, you can't use that name, that's my name. And they would have to make a change. Assumed business names, and we'll talk about that more, but they are not protected the way an LLC name or a corporation name is. So you want to check your name, and choose your business structure. And the business structures do different things. Of course, there are nonprofits, so those are businesses that are formed to provide some kind of support, educational support, or scientific purposes, or religious, or social advocacy. And then there are for-profit businesses. I'm going to make the assumption that we're all looking at a for-profit business. And a for-profit business, basically it means that you're starting this business and the monies are to support you. So the monies that you earn as a business owner are going back to you. And you need to decide what structure you want to set up for your business. Sole proprietorship or general partnership if you have a business partner, LLC or corporation. Then PLLCs and PCs, those are for professionally licensed occupations like physicians or engineers or architects, not for a food business. Sole proprietorship is a basic way of registering a business and a business name. It links the business to you personally, so no separation between you and the business. That means what happens to the business happens to you personally. It is quick and easy and inexpensive, $26, and you register at your county register of deeds office. There's a form you fill out and take it to the register of deeds, $26. They process it right there, put a stamp, you get a confirmation. In the past year, more counties have begun putting that process online. Not all of them are there yet, but some are. So sometimes you can actually file it online and not have to go downtown, which can be, I live in Wake County, so going downtown and finding parking can be interesting sometimes. So you don't always have to go downtown. You can look online, and your Register of Deeds office will, their website will show that information. And then we have LLCs and corporations, and they are registered online with the North Carolina Secretary of State. I'm going to talk about corporation first. A corporation is a little more complicated type of a business structure. The person who starts the corporation is considered an incorporator versus sort of an owner. And a corporation declares shares of stock. So you're a stockholder in the business. Now that doesn't mean you're going to hit the NASDAQ next week or anything like that, but you own shares of stock. And if you have a business partner, you split those shares of stock based on what percentage of the business you own. Corporations often have bylaws and boards of directors. They generally have to file an annual meeting of some kind, the minutes for that meeting. And you may have heard that corporations are double taxed. Um, what that means is the corporation, because it's the separate entity as itself, it files income tax as the corporation. And then it pays dividends to the shareholders. And then I, as a shareholder, have to pay taxes on those monies that I have received from them. So you see that they're taxed, the money's taxed twice. A corporation separates business assets from personal assets. So the risk of the business is to the business. So heaven forbid the business is sued. It's the business is affected, not me personally as the stockholder. And then there is an LLC. And an LLC is kind of a hybrid in between a sole proprietorship and a corporation. LLCs are registered online with the North Carolina Secretary of State. It's $125 to register. Same with the corporation. So $125 to register. You do it online. And LLCs have the same separation, business from personal. So you have that liability protection, but you don't have shares of stock. You're not double taxed. When you file your income tax for an LLC, you're filing it the same way you would generally for a sole proprietorship that's registered with the county. So you would file your regular 1040 plus probably Schedule C, which is the schedule that has expenses and income. And some of those expenses offset because you're a business owner. Um, but that money doesn't get double taxed. So it's not quite as complicated as a corporation. So LLC is often a good option for people, and and it's really important to understand one business structure is not better than the other. They simply do different things, and people choose different ones for different reasons. Um, Sometimes people start out one way, they make a change later as they grow. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever's right for you as the business owner. And you may have heard of something called an S Corp or S Corporation. And we sometimes get calls from people who want to register as an S Corp. And it's not a way to register a business in North Carolina, but it is an IRS tax designation. So first you form in your state, corporation or LLC, and then after that you file on the irs.gov website to be recognized or to be designated as an S Corp. And it affects the way you're taxed. And I am not an accountant. That's one important thing to understand is that my team and I were not accountants, we're not lawyers. So sometimes there will be things that we have to send you over to somebody else who's an expert on those things. But the small amount I know about an S Corp is it can prevent a corporation from being double taxed, and it can allow a business owner or shareholder to be paid as an employee. So you have income tax withholding and unemployment and those kind of things versus filing your quarterly estimated taxes is what you would normally do as a business owner. So it's a tax thing. And if you want to know more about it, irs.gov has all sorts of information, but also an accountant would be able to advise you. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is check our to see if our business name is available. So we're going to go to the Secretary of State's website. It's sosnc.gov. And you'll see Secretary Marshall's photograph. And underneath there, you see those bright colored boxes. And below that, there's your option under business registration, search business entities. So you can click there and go do a search. There's a whole lot of more information on that website too, as you can see. All right. So when you click that link, the page on the left that you're seeing on your left will pop up and says search business registration. And you just type in a business name. If nothing comes up, you are golden. Nobody has chosen that name. You are good to use it. If something pops up, you need to dig a little bit. In this case, we did a search on Triangle Solutions. And you can see here the first thing that pops up is Triangle Solutions Incorporated. It's a current active business. That means I cannot register a business using that name. The Secretary of State will reject it. Um, Underneath it, you see some additional names. They have Triangle Solutions as part of the name. So I could have a business that was Triangle Solutions of Morrisville, for example, as long as somebody didn't already have it. So you see here Triangle Solutions Alliance, commercial cleaning, consulting, so different things. But you also may notice here we've got Triangle Solutions Alliance says it's dissolved. That means that either they have closed the business or it was administratively dissolved by the Secretary of State for some legal reason, possibly for not paying their annual report, their renewal fees or something like that. Um, so there are different reasons. The one there at the bottom says multiple, so that means there's different things going on with that one. And if the business is definitely closed, that name may be available if it's been long enough. I think the rule is 5 years. Um, but before you use a business name that has already been used, you want to make sure that business had a good reputation. You do not want to inherit a poor reputation from a previous owner. So think about that. Um, so if the name that you have chosen is not available and you don't have, a backup, it's always good to have a couple backups. You could add something to the name. Like I said, Triangle Solutions of Morrisville would be an option. That makes it obvious it's not the same company as this Triangle Solutions. So that's your business name. You're going to check that first. Then you got to make your decision. How am I going to register? Register of Deeds is for your sole proprietorship, or if you have a business partner, it's referred to as a general partnership. And if you're going to do an LLC, a corporation, if you're one of those professionally licensed businesses or a nonprofit, that's done online with the Secretary of State. All right, let's say we're going to do sole proprietorship. We're going to go out to the Register of Deeds website to find where our Register of Deeds is. And they've got a handy dandy little map. And you click on your county, it'll pop up a screen, tell you where they're located, their phone number, their website, all manner of information. It's really helpful. And the form here on the right, that's the assumed business name certificate. Obviously, that's its title. But this is the form, if you're doing a hard copy, this is the form you're going to fill out as the business owner to register your sole proprietorship. So you fill this out. The assumed business name, that's your business name. The real name of the person or entity, that's going to be your name. What kind of business? Could be catering, could be just food business or food manufacturer, food truck, any manner of things. Your address, mailing address if it's different. And then number 6, where are you going to do business? And the Secretary of State recommends that you choose all 100 counties. That way you can do business anywhere. So if you're a caterer and you happen to live in Guilford County, but somebody in Forsyth wants you to come over there and do a job for them, no issues. You're covered. So all 100 counties. And then, you finish it, sign it, take it with your $26, and they process it for you, and you're golden. Let's say we want to do an LLC. We're going to go to the Secretary of State's website. So we go back to sosnc.gov, and under Secretary Marshall's photograph, those bright colored buttons, the first one, register your new business. So you're going to click on it. And that'll take you to the form. You see this pop up here. It tells you how long processing is running currently. And right now it is 10 to 15 business days. April and May is sort of their busy season at the Secretary of State. The renewals for LLCs and corporations are due at that time. And so things slow down just a little bit. Um, and sometimes it's, a week and a half, other times it's the full 15, 3 weeks. Um, just depends on the workload at the office there. But you would click that. It takes you to a login screen and you say, well, what in the world? I can't log in. I don't have an ID. So you look to the right and you click there on first time user, and that will take you to a screen to where you can register an account. And it asks for a lot of information. I swear you have to put your address in 3 or 4 times. It seems crazy to me, but that's how it's set up. So you set it up, create your password, do all that sort of thing, and then it will ask what it is you want to do. And you're going to choose business registration or creation filing. It asks you if you have first of all, what type, are you doing LLC, corporation, whatever? You choose that. And then it asks, has this entity meaning the business, has it been created in another state or country? Because there's a different process if you are expanding into North Carolina instead of starting a new North Carolina business. So we're going to say no because we're starting a new business and we want to start an LLC. So we choose LLC. And then we begin the creation filing. And you go through, back here. It's going to have some terms that will probably be new to you. The form will ask you for a registered agent. And a registered agent is someone who receives legal documents and can sign for things on your behalf or on the behalf of the business. In North Carolina, I can be my own registered agent. I do not have to hire another company to do that for me. Some people choose to do that. They hire a company to do it, and that's perfectly fine, but you can be your own. And you'll need to use a physical street address where someone could deliver something to be signed for. That could be your home address. Not everyone's comfortable putting their home address out there. You can use a virtual mailbox service. And that's a company like the UPS store or Postal One or mailboxes, etc. There are many, many companies that offer those services. And you would have an address like 123 Main Street, Box 12. A P.O. box is not acceptable, and the Secretary of State's tool will reject it. So it has to have a street address. So once you figured that out, you put that information in. So that's the registered agent piece. It will ask you if you are a member or an organizer. And a member is an owner, and an organizer is the person filling out the form. So probably you're going to be both member and organizer. If you have a business partner, you're going to have another name there or add their name and information in as an additional member. So however many business partners you have, that's what goes in there. And I think the rest of it is pretty straightforward. But my team and I actually walk people through forms every single day. So if you get stuck on something, don't hesitate to reach out, and you'll have our contact information and all that sort of stuff here. So now we're going to talk a little bit about taxes. Federal taxes, as well as state taxes. So federal taxes, that's the EIN or Employer Identification Number. Actually, two very important things to know about an EIN. Having an EIN does not do anything to register you to do business in a state. It is a federal tax ID or a tax number for a business. sort of like a social security number for us. An EIN gets assigned to a business. Not exactly the same, but it's a good analogy. Um, Partnerships, LLCs, and corporations are required to have an EIN. So proprietorships, it is optional. However, very often when you go to open your bank account for the business, your bank will tell you you need one. It is free. You apply on irs.gov. It takes you maybe 5 minutes, but it is free. Make sure you are on irs.gov, please. There are sketchy companies out there who will charge you $300 for a free tax number. So watch out for stuff like that. And there are many companies out there. People do a search online. How do I start a business in North Carolina? And all these companies pop up. And whereas, for example, if I was doing an LLC, um, whereas I would be charged $125 by the Secretary of State, these companies charge, six, 700 or more, depending on what their offerings are. And those offerings, you don't always need the things that they are giving you. Um, they're not like a legal requirement or a regulatory requirement in North Carolina. And they very often don't know state specific requirements. So they'll say, okay, we'll do this, but now you have to go contact and find this information. So watch out for that kind of stuff. So there are sketchy companies out there. And they will very often give you what it is that you think you're going to get, but you have to pay money for them when you didn't have to at all. Um, so for your EIN, you'll go to irs.gov, and you see here in the upper left, it says it's an official website of the US government. And there's this link that says, here's how you know, and you can go look at it. State websites, I think basically any .gov website is going to have that information. But this is where you would go. Here's some, looking here, do I need an EIN? Or, you know what, I used to have a business and I had one. Do I need a new one? And there are charts there that say whether you need it or not. But if you're ready to do it, just below this part of the page, there's a blue box you click on to register. Again, 5 minutes tops. You do want to be able to print your screen so that you have confirmation of that number. So if you're doing it on your phone, do a print screen there. If you're doing it on your computer, save it at the screen as a PDF or send it off to your printer because you want to have that confirmation. You'll need it for your bank, possibly for other purposes, but you want it for your business files anyway. So you've got that confirmation. All right. Some of us are going to need a state tax number. Um, and you get that from the North Carolina Department of Revenue. Again, it is a free registration. It's used for, let's see, if you're going to sell a product or rent a product, if you are providing installation, maintenance, and repair services, or if you're doing short-term lodging, you need it for your sales and use tax. Or if you hire employees, you'll need it for payroll, for your income tax withholding at the state level. So those of us who would be in a food related business, we're going to be selling something, obviously. And so we're going to need this tax number. And it's a free registration. You do it right online. And here's on the Department of Revenue's website. Again, it's a .gov website, NCDOR. The form, oddly enough, is called NC Business Registration, NCBR. And very often people think that this is the only business registration you need. Frankly, I thought that. I used to sell my artwork many, many, many years ago before I started working here. And I knew I had to charge sales tax, so I needed a sales tax number. So I went out and I filled out my form. I got my number. I had no clue I needed to register my business name or do any of the other things. So I know better now. So I help make sure other people know better now. So NCBR is for your sales and use tax account or your income tax withholding. Um, it pops up here, the first screen, and it starts talking about natural gas and aviation fuel and selling liquor and different things. But at the bottom of the page, you see that little button that says next. You click on next, and that takes you to the form. This form takes more than 5 minutes. It asks you a whole lot more things, a lot more questions, including what kind of business do you have? What kind of work do you do? Um, so you fill it out. Generally, you get the number right away after you've, gone through the whole thing. And again, you want to do a print screen. Sometimes their system has a hiccup and you get a pop-up that says that you'll get it in the mail. But you'll also get in the mail your certificate. So your sales and use tax certificate, along with instructions on sending in your sales tax to Department of Revenue and how frequently. Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Restaurants, I think it's often weekly or every other week. It depends on how much sales tax you collect as a business owner, but they will tell you. And that certificate that you receive from them, that's what, if you have a physical location, that's what goes up on the wall. Or if you are vending at an event, let's say you have, a booth at the farmer's market, or you have a food truck, or you're selling jam at a festival. You're supposed to have that on display in your booth when you're doing that. Um, when I was selling my artwork, I did a photocopy and shrunk it down to fit in a picture frame that went with my booth and had it up there. So that's something easy to do. Um, that you can just keep in your booth box if you're doing that kind of selling. And it's right there with your business cards and your whatever wrapping and all that kind of stuff. So easy to do. Now, when we have a business, we very often need to buy supplies to produce whatever it is that we're going to sell. So let's say I make baked goods. So obviously I need to buy, not only my cake pans and mixers and things like that, but also, I need flour and sugar and fruit and all those things, butter, all that stuff. And I want to purchase that wholesale and not pay sales tax on it because I'm going to charge my customer sales tax on the other side, because I'm selling to the consumer or the customer. Um, Sometimes a supplier or a vendor will ask you for a business license, and we've already established we don't have one in North Carolina. Or they will ask you for a seller's permit or a wholesale certificate or a resale license. North Carolina does everything they can to make it easier to do business in North Carolina, and we don't have extra licenses for things like purchasing wholesale. But not every state is like that. Because of that, so that our business owners would have something to present to a vendor or a supplier, they created this form, Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Certificate of Exemption. We refer to it by its number, E595E. And it's a form that I, as a business owner, fill out for a vendor or supplier who wants proof that I'm a legitimate business. So I fill it out here, purchaser's name, that's me, the name of the seller, that's the vendor, and then what's the type of business. So if it's food services, then I would choose number 1. If I am a retail trade business, I would choose number 10. So based on what I do, that's what I choose under number 3. And then number 4, why is it that I'm exempt from having to pay sales tax on my supplies? And I'm going to choose letter G, resale, because what I'm doing is I'm taking those supplies, creating something and reselling it. And then it asks for a resale number. And that resale number is your sales tax account number. Um, Fill out the rest of the form, and that form you give to that supplier who's asking you for proof that you're a business. They then keep it on file. If revenue ever goes and says, well, why are you selling to Laurel and not charging her sales tax? They pull out the form and say, well, look, she's a business owner. She's reselling. Here's her number, and all is well. So if somebody asks you for a license and there is no license to give them, this is something you can use instead. Okay, hiring employees. So let's say I'm a caterer, and I can't cook all this stuff myself. I need staff. I'm going to have employees, and that means I have payroll. So income tax withholding for federal and state, unemployment, workers' comp insurance to protect my workers, new hire reporting. If I have a restaurant, I need labor posters. And so these are different requirements when you have payroll, when you have employees. Um, Sometimes I don't need employees, but occasionally I need some help. So let's say it's a caterer, and they need servers for an event. And a server might be hired only for a specific event. This is, when it is, and yes, they're willing to work for me for that, but they're not an employee, they're a contractor. And there is a legal difference between an employee and a contractor, and you want to make sure you understand that, because there can be fines and stuff if you pay someone as a contractor and they really are an employee. So a contractor is also sometimes referred to as a 1099 worker. And the 1099, that's a tax form that I, as a business owner, complete for someone who has worked for me during the year. So when I pay that server, for example, I'm not going to withhold tax or anything. I'm just going to pay them whatever it is that I'm going to pay them. And then at the end of the year, I issue this 1099 form and say, I've paid this person this much money over the year. It goes to the person, to Department of Revenue and the IRS. And it's what is used for filing their income tax. And that contract worker is, they have to pay income tax, of course, on their own, because they're self-employed. And that, just make sure you understand the difference. Employee versus contractor, the U.S. Department of Labor and the North Carolina Department of Revenue, our Carolina Department of Labor and IRS websites all have information about that. And there's like a checklist, and if you check off certain things, then that means they're an employee versus a contractor, and that'll be helpful to you. All right, compliance. So here's where things like licensing, permitting, additional sorts of requirements come in. And again, we've already established we're not going to have a piece of paper that says business license on it. So licensing is based on industry or occupation, and it can be based on your location. So there's sometimes local requirements. So licensing are things like Board of Cosmetic Arts. If I'm an electrician, I'm going to need a license. Medical professionals, massage therapists, attorneys, landscape architects, things like that are going to need a license. Sometimes there are certifications. So my friend who works at the hospital as a lab tech he has a certification that he has to maintain versus a state license. So a little bit different. And then sometimes some cities and municipalities have their own local requirements that are separate from state requirements. And those could be things like a street vending permit or a home occupation permit or passenger transportation permit of some kind, things like that. All right, so they're based on occupation. Food businesses in general, unless you're selling alcohol, are not going to have an occupational license. Again, it's things like architects, nurses, nail technicians, massage therapists, electricians, general contractors, daycare, things like that. But a food business that does not involve alcohol is not going to have a license. Now you have some other requirements, and we'll talk about those too. Um, but no, nothing that's going to say license. There is a another license called a privilege license, and that it used to be much more widespread. It's down to only three in the state are required, and it's for businesses absolutely not related to food, things like pawnbrokers, loan officers, and check cashing businesses. So you'll never be asked for that. But licensing can also be based on where your business is located or based. Um, I mentioned already the passenger transportation. Um, when you're selling and serving alcohol, sometimes a city will have special requirements on top of that ABC license. Or if you have a home-based business, sometimes there's something called a home occupation permit, and it's a permit for a home-based business. Some cities have them, some do not. Some it depends. I live in Raleigh, and here in Raleigh, if I have someone come to my house for the business, like I'm a piano teacher, I need a license for that from the city, home occupation license. Um, Maybe a home occupation permit, so permit versus license. Um, but if I'm an artist and my studio's in the house, but nobody ever comes to my house, in Raleigh, I don't need a license. In Charlotte, you need it, period. So it's different depending on where you're located, and some places have none whatsoever. Um, if you're going to have a home-based business, you want to check in with your city. First of all, do I need a license or a permit for that? You also, if you live in an area that has an HOA, you want to check that. If you're renting a property or leasing a property, you want to check your lease too. Make sure there are no conflicts there. Um, so so you might need it, or you may need nothing at all, but it's important to check. This is not one of those things where you want to ask for forgiveness later. You want to be sure so you don't get fined or something like that. All right. There is a website to do searching on for licenses. There are some food related license, if you're processing meat, or if you are selling eggs, you have an apiary. There are some things that have some additional requirements. We're going to dig into a little bit about that as we get further. But by and large, you're probably not going to check this website, but it's out there for other businesses. So y'all, as entrepreneurs, it's likely you're going to know other people who are starting businesses, and you can share this information. You can also share our number with them, and we can help people with it. But you can see here on the website, it's a Department of Commerce website, but our number is listed here as the contact point. So we're the ones that provide the support. So food and beverage requirements. So food and beverage, there are absolutely, food safety, sanitation, kitchen inspection, all sorts of requirements. And they're handled by and large by either the county health department or the Department of Agriculture. And those organizations work very closely together. Um, Often the health department handles restaurants and mobile food businesses. Um, and the county health department, there's more than one division. There's the environmental health that handles food safety. And then there's the public health side of the house that handles, vaccines and clinics and that kind of stuff. And every county has one. Then there's the Department of Agriculture, North Carolina Department of Agriculture, the Food and Drug Division, and they handle very often baked goods and beverages, home processing, and things like, packaging and labeling. If you call one and it's the other one, they will let you know this is where you can find more information. And sometimes they just back each other up, so they may simply help you with it. So it's never a bad thing that you call one rather than the other. They will get you to the right folks and get you the right information. Um, One cool thing on the Department of Agriculture's website, on the Got to Be NC page, is a list of shared use and co-pack kitchens. So if I have wanted to do home processing, for example, I want to use my home kitchen, but I have a dog in my house, it will never pass inspection. So that means I need an alternate plan. Sometimes a shared use kitchen where I can go rent time in a kitchen that already has all the equipment that I need, um, is a good option. And this page lists a bunch of those locations, co-pack kitchens. So I have a product and I want somebody else to produce and bottle and package it for me, companies like that. Um, they do labeling. But the Got to Be NC page is also a really good resource for things that are grown and made in North Carolina. Now, I am going to jump out here briefly and I'll come back. Um, I want to jump over here. So let's just real quickly. So I went to Wake County, the public health department, and it's got all these different resources. I'm going to click on environmental health because that's what I need. And then I've got two options here in Wake County. I've got environmental health and safety, or I've got water protection. Yeah, I'm not doing anything for water protection, so that means I want this one. And here's all the information I need. So if I've got food trucks, that's where I'm going to go here. Home-based food processors, there's information here. Rules and regulations, standards, festivals and fairs, all kinds of information. And in Wake County, they apparently have a monthly Q&A for mobile food businesses. So that's a nice resource. But they've got all sorts of information here. Not as much that's on your state extension pages, but a lot of good information. Duplin County, a little bit different. Here's environmental health. And there's childcare, like for daycare centers. Here's my food, lodging, and institutions. That's what I want. So I would go to food. And there it is. And there's their information. And they've got people you can go to. Now I'm going to jump over to Department of Agriculture. And I want here to divisions and then chose food and drug. And you can see here, there's different options here. I'm going to go to the food program. And then here are links to laws. But here's additional information. So home processor information. Food, let's go look here. Food manufacturers, wholesale, retail, licensing, inspections, food labeling. If I need somebody to look at my food label, product testing, all kinds of information. Contacts. Here's a page starting a food business. All manner of good stuff here. So lots of good information. North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And there's something, pet food or treats. I had friends who wanted to start a pet treat business, and they discovered that because they had their dogs in their house, they could not do home processing. So they had to make changes. But here, this page takes you out to another resource for pet food businesses. So if you're doing dog treats or something like that. So that's the Department of Agriculture page. Again, contacts. And back up here, home processor, eggs, all manner of stuff. All kinds of good information here. Lots of different programs, services. And here we have Got to Be NC. And this page has a lot of different information, local products. So you can be a member as a food related business, or if you create, you make things, you can be a member and have a community of people who do similar things to you. Um, Here, just all kinds of information here. The Egg Association. Here's a cookbook. USDA. Here they're giving you a link to additional information on the website for farmers.gov. And then down here we've got news, member opportunities, industry resources. Let's go here. Here we've got more information, starting a business, food labeling and nutrition information, lots of FDA links here. Here's our co-packers. Those are the businesses you partner with to bottle or package something based on your specific recipe and requirements and packaging and all. And then shared use or incubator kitchens. This is a smallish list. There are more. Your extension service in your county will likely know who those are. Your small business center also might know. They're also a really good resource. And here's other marketing links. North Carolina Department of Agriculture, Marketing Division, associations that might be useful to you as a business owner. So those are a few good websites to check out. And now we're going to go back here and jump to another page. All right. In addition to your kitchen inspection, you've got things like ServSafe, the certification so that you know that you're handling, you have proper sanitation, you're handling things correctly. If you use alcohol in the preparation of your food product, or you're going to serve or sell alcohol, so if you're a restaurant or a caterer, you're going to need a license from the ABC Commission. So you're going to want to talk to them. And there are different types of licenses based on what you do. And then mobile food businesses. So those are things like food trucks or food carts, street vending, pop-ups, things like that. Very often, your city, the city where you want to vend, will very often have a permit for street vending for that type of thing. So you'll need to talk to the city where you're going to do that. Some cities, like Raleigh, has rules about how close you can park to a brick and mortar restaurant. So some cities may have, specific requirements, but generally you're going to need a permit. If you are at the beach or at a park, whether it's city, county, state, federal, there are often additional requirements for those particular locations. So make sure you ask those questions up front if you're doing mobile vending. All right. We've talked about most of this already. Zoning, the city zoning department is who you're going to check with for your local permitting. Some cities have rules about signs, how big they can be, where you can put them, stuff like that. And then there is this thing called business personal property tax. And it's a county tax every business has to pay every January. And it's related to equipment you use in your business. Basically things that allow it to run and function. And what you're going to do is you're going to call your county tax department and say, I'm starting a business in Raleigh. What does this business personal property tax mean to me as a business owner? And they'll ask you what you do, and you'll ask them questions. They ask you questions, and then you'll understand what it is you need to be aware of for that. Basically, once personal property is used for business purposes, they fall into this category called business personal property tax. So my 3-year-old laptop, if I start using that for my business use, that falls into this category and I have to pay tax on it. Now, it depreciates and all those sorts of things, and they will talk you through all of that stuff. So just be aware of that, that you want to check on it. All right. So we're also a really, because we partner with state agencies and local nonprofits and entrepreneurship resources, we're also a good resource, place to find resources. So things that we've talked about already, the small business centers, the cooperative extension service, Department of Agriculture. If you're a veteran or military family, the VBOC, the VBOC, Veteran Business Outreach Center, all have free resources for you as a business owner, and they're really, really useful. Save your money for the important stuff that you need to spend money on and take advantage of free stuff. Um, Sometimes we need funding to help with our business, and we have a large list of funding resources. A commercial bank is not always the best resource for a small business just starting. There are nonprofit um, financial institutions, CDFIs, community development financial institutions, that offer small business loans backed by the Small Business Administration, so backed by the SBA. They range from microloans on up. There are many here in North Carolina. This is just a small list of them. And I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead here because I want to get to questions. I know we've got some. For some of you, a business certification may be useful. And if you are going to bid on jobs, like if you want to cater for, I don't know, Department of Commerce events, or for your local city, you want to bid on a contract for them for something related to your business. You'll need to be certified, and you can be certified as a woman-owned, minority-owned, or veteran-owned business, as HUB, historically underutilized business, or SBE, small business enterprise. And there are different organizations like the Women's Business Center, the VBOC, Small Business Center, that can help you with that if you think that might be useful to you as a business owner. It's not useful to all businesses, but it is to some businesses. Just really quickly, we are out and about, one too many, out and about in the community doing events, teaching like this for different organizations, small business centers, the VBOC, our public libraries across the state, as well as small business expos, things like that. We partner with both the Mexican and the Guatemalan consulate. We have bilingual resources, so we're out and about regularly, doing presentations, having staffing info tables, things like that. So you may run into us out there, and please do stop and say hi. Here is our contact information. Um, our phones are open in general 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday. You can call us. You can leave a voicemail if we're not available, and we return calls. You can send us an email and say, "Hey, I watched that presentation. I need some help with whatever." And we respond to emails. Um, we talk people through all of this, and then we send you an email that's personalized to what you're doing, your city, county location, all that sort of thing. So you'll get an email step by step, 1, 2, 3, 4, links to forms, phone numbers, all that good stuff. And although we are not the organizations that sit down with you and provide the counseling that like the Small Business Center does, or the really specific information that the Extension Service does, we are available to help you with those regulatory things and also get you to other resources that could be helpful to you. Um, and now I know we've got some questions, so I'm going to hop in here. We got a few. So I want to jump in here real quickly. Let's see here. The E595E form. Okay, great question, Renita. The E59E form, that's the form that you are going to fill out and give to a supplier who wants proof that you're a business. Generally, you're going to do it once for each of those suppliers. So it's not something you give to the state or the city, but it could be the restaurant supply store, or Costco, or someplace that you would buy supplies, and you give it to them. They keep it on file. Oh wow, Kate's been adding all kinds of great links. That's awesome. Yeah, and Kate, zoning is absolutely important for home processors. So it's important to do that. Um, all
And I'm
right.
going to real quickly add in, Laurel, while you're reading this question, I'm going to add in not only the zoning's important for home processors, but if you have an HOA where you live and you'd like to be a home processor, run it by them too, because they will find out about your company as you go through your marketing. And some HOAs do not allow you to have a business run out of your home. So it's better to find that out sooner than later.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Okay, so Mitas has an LLC in California and moving to Durham. So there is absolutely a process to do that. It's called conversions. You convert from one state to the other, and we walk people through it. So you can absolutely reach out to us. We will help you with that. Um, Sometimes a business is expanding. So if you wanted to keep your business in California, but you're adding North Carolina to your states, there's a different process for that. So yeah, we can absolutely help you with that. It's done on the Secretary of State's website. There are some conversion is or transfer, we call it too. It's a little tricky on their website because it's not set up, their database is not set up to recognize the fact that you are coming from another state. So there's an extra step you have to do, but we can walk you through that absolutely. Just give us a call, and we'll help you with that. So what other questions do we have? Okay. Well, when you think of something in the middle of the night, remember that there's somebody that you can call to get help with. Um, oh, here's what, Alicia, funding. Okay. So funding for small businesses, and when you take like an online class about it, and there are many for free about that, um, you there are many different options. Sometimes businesses self-fund. So if I have some money, I could self-fund. You can sometimes family members put money into a business, S- but sometimes you need a loan. CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, a handful, CDFIs, they're nonprofit financial organizations that offer small business loans. And you don't have to have perfect credit. Um, Whereas at a commercial bank, you have to tick all the little boxes and fit into their rules. CDFIs are in your community, and they operate a little differently than a commercial bank. And they are very often a great resource. They provide financial counseling right along with any loans they offer. And let's say I don't have a lot of credit yet, and so nobody is ready to loan to me. They will help you to become eligible to get a loan. So they're wonderful resources. So CDFIs, and there are a couple dozen. There's a whole bunch here in North Carolina. Carolina Small Business Development Fund is one that I know well, because one of my employees went to work for them last fall. So we have a good contact there and learn more about how they work and what they do, and they're awesome resources. So CDFIs are good resources. Grants, it would be wonderful if there was a bunch of free money out there. Grants, it's basically you have to find something that applies to the type of business that you are starting. Apply and then wait to see if you're chosen. So it's not a sure thing. It's not a quick fix. Never hurts to apply, but it's not going to be a quick fix. But there are other options out there. Okay.
We'll keep, excuse me, pardon me. We'll keep an eye on chat in case anyone has a last minute question for Laurel. But I wanted to take this moment to thank you again so much for joining us. Truly so much information. Probably one of the most informative webinars that I personally needed. I know I learned so much today. So all of those resources are going to be sent out to you. I'm going to go through our transcript and try to get as many of those websites that Laurel was talking about for their uses included on that follow-up email that everyone will receive tomorrow. And my request is that if you could take a few short minutes, I just put the link to our survey and feedback for this event into chat. We would really appreciate to hear from all of you.
And and I'm just going to chime in here. When you're asked for you get a survey for an organization that's a nonprofit or a state-funded organization. Take the 2 or 3 minutes it takes to respond. It's so truly it's so helpful. I mean, I don't like to say we have to justify our existence, but sometimes we do, and it's important to show people that show the powers be that people really appreciate and need the information we share. So please do that survey. It'll just take a few minutes, I promise.
Thank you. Well, I'm not seeing anything else in chat. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you on some of our upcoming webinars. Only 3 left in our success series. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.